Good morning. Good morning, everyone. We will just wait for a few more seconds for people to connect, and then we will start. So let's get started. So good morning, everyone, and thank you for joining us today. The International Energy Agency is very pleased to welcome you to this new webinar in the IEA Africa University series. My name is Zakia Adam, and I work as a statistics manager for Sub-Saharan Africa within the IEA Energy Data Center. And I'm very happy to be here today to talk about a very important and interesting topic for Africa, which is solid biofuels. Before giving the floor to Maria Betancourt and Thierry Audou, who will present to you our work that we are doing on solid biofuels and the model that they have developed, I would like to do some scene setting and say a few words on the IEA for those who may not be familiar with our institution. The IEA has been created in 1974 after the first oil crisis. It is an international organization that aims at facilitating the coordination of energy policies of its member countries and beyond. Its initial mandate was to ensure the security of energy supply, mainly oil, in order to support economic growth. Since the past 50 years, the IEA has expanded its expertise to all energy sources. We collect data and do analysis on almost all countries of the world, all energy sector, and all technologies. For Africa, we work extensively with the AFREC, for example, but also with local governments and ministries. In the IEA, we have around 300 statisticians, analysts, modelers, and experts on energy that work within the agency. The IEA can ensure policy advice to its members and beyond. The IEA also conveys policy advice to policymakers, and we organize high-level summits each year. And each year, alongside the African Union, we host a Pan-African ministerial summit that gathers ministers from across the continent to discuss key topics. We also work extensively on climate issues and clean energy transition, especially this year of the COP26 that will be held in November. So through our regular training activities, we work closely with many countries to help them improve their data collection and build models. And with the support of the European Union, the IEA is implementing a capacity reinforcement program for 10 sub-Saharan African countries. And in this program, for the moment, we are doing online courses for each country given the COVID situation, but also several other activities and bilateral work. And we are hoping to start doing in-country training activities as soon as the situation allows us next year. Last but not least, if you want to be kept informed of our activities, then do not hesitate to join our WhatsApp group and also the LinkedIn community. So now, without further ado, I will pass over to Maria Betancourt to present to you our work on solid biofuels. Maria, the floor is yours.
Thank you very much, Sakia, for that introduction. I'm going to present to you the introduction also to our model, the model we have developed to get estimations about the solid biofuels in Africa, along with the work with Thierry Odu. He's also here. First of all, as I said, we're going to talk about a little context about the solid biofuels in Africa. We're going to talk about the project and how this has been crucial to get the development of this model, the data sources we used, and the challenges we had during the collection. And then we're going to go into a broader approach of how the model works, how is it limited, and then we're going to start a demonstration with you in order you get to know how the model is constructed and how you can interact with it. So first and most important, why is important the solid biofuels in Africa? As you may know, Africa represents 50% of the solid biofuels consumption, and up to 80% of this consumption is used for residential cooking. We have found that the main and most important categories along the African continent are fuel wood, charcoal, and agricultural residues. As I mentioned before, these solid biofuels are used mainly for cooking in the household level. And as the population is growing, the solid biofuels consumption is also projected to grow in the incoming years. You may ask what happens with urbanization. Well, here we have a special phenomenon, and it's that in African countries we have verified that the urbanization actually has brought an increase on the charcoal demand at the household level. So as you might know, solid biofuels are crucial in the energy mix in the African continent, especially in the sub-Saharan zone. However, and they are and the ability to get the data is crucial to determine the contribution of each country in the sustainability goals and to assess policy. However, we have found that most of the countries don't have data for recent years. There is a systematic lack of recent studies. So you may know that most of the estimations are based in 2000-2002 surveys. There is a lack of a comprehensive methodology and framework, which has led into different, in a non-harmonized database. And finally, this has resulted in a lot of estimations from the IEA and from different organizations as AFRIC to use macroeconomic trends to estimate the biofuels, such as GDP or population growth. However, as my colleague Sakia mentioned before, we have developed a program called an Affordable Sustainable Energy System for Sub-Saharan countries, in which we are focusing in 10 Sub-Saharan countries to improve the quality of the historical and also the incoming years of the solid biofuels demand. So this is the 10 different countries selected. And the idea is to improve the balances that are already published, also to make a tool that the different staff from the different countries can interact with and have good estimations. Obviously, if we're gonna improve the whole panorama of the data in solid biofuels in the African continent, also we are aiming to foster the discussion between all the different experts along the continent through sharing the knowledge and good practices of data. So the idea here with the model is to have a comprehensive model which gives us accurate data, but also to use the data that is available for everyone. In order to do so, we had relied on different sources. So we get the cooking relies on different fuels from the World Health Organization. We also got different development indicators such as macroeconomic like GDP or urban population percentage. We also use the SDG database. As you may know, the seven goal of sustainability of the UN is about access to clean energy. So they have a broad data set of this different of the tracking in the African continent. We have found also interesting sources from universities talking about the household size in the different countries. And finally, the energy balances that have been published already by the IEA. We are very aware that the model is just a beginning to get to improve our data, but if we want to improve and have more accurate data, there are some extra variables that should be considered to collect, such as the improved cooking stops, the penetration in each country, maybe to have a historical database about this. If we get to know more about the agricultural practices, then we get to know also more about the different residues that are used for energy purposes. Different practices on the fuel wood collection and storage give us different calorific value. This set is different practices bring us more or less energy to be burned. The ventilation of the different facilities in which these fuels are used to cook or to heat also are very relevant. Get to know more about the share of the energy in a household level. Let's say how much is spent in cooking, heating, and lighting, that are the principal activities. And finally, what are the different calorific values, which means what are the different species that are used and the moisture of the fuel that is used for energy purposes. So the idea with this model is to have an output to get the whole national demand at a household level. This is how the model was constructed. So at the beginning, we get a pre-analysis study in which we select the most relevant variables to define our model. Then how it works is that we get that equation in which we put as an input the different social, economic, and technical data of each country, and different assumptions and general settings, such as I mentioned before, the calorific value and so on. We will see this in more detail. Then having these two inputs, the model takes this information into account and produce a result that will be the energy demand per end use. Let's say if we have we will have energy demand used for cooking, lighting, and heating of each of the three fuels we mentioned, so wood fuel and charcoal and agricultural residues. And then this will be populated to the whole country to get a whole balance. So this is the first part of this workshop. The idea here is that now Thierry is going to talk us more about the technical information. So Thierry, the floor is yours.
So can you hear me?
Yes.
Okay,
Yes.
thank you very much, Maria, for laying the background for this presentation, and in particular about presenting our model that try to bridge the gap and also to provide some useful information to the policymakers and our partners in order to support decision making. So next slide, please. So as Maria was just saying, the model take into account different sources, and in particular from international organizations, and also those data that are gathered from countries at the bottom level. So what we did initially, we did first of all, a pre-analysis of the data. So what we decided to do is to have, for instance, to have first of all the specific consumption per fuel tap at different level in urban and rural areas. And to do so, we have selected some countries, those countries that have more or less some reliable data and also are doing good in terms of improving access to clean cooking on the continent. So among those countries were Angola, South Africa, Senegal, Botswana, and Morocco, and other countries. And then we decided to look at to do a kind of backward determination of the specific energy consumption per fuel tap, and then see whether this specific energy consumption per fuel tap, in particular solid biofuel for charcoal and firewood, are within an acceptable range. And then from there, when the different specific consumption per fuel tap for different, whether in rural and urban area, are within the good range, is meant that this data can be used further for our model. So at the end of the day, we found that Angola and Senegal data are more or less capture the average range acceptable in the continent. So we move forward by using this country data into the model. So as Maya was saying, we gather data from different sources, and at the end of the day, you end up with more than 100 variables and data. So how do you know whether this variable is important or not? It will require to use some advanced techniques, machine learning techniques, and in order to find those ones that are relevant and can explain the different specific consumption that we determined earlier using some of those countries as a proxy. So later on, we use a multilinear regression analysis, simple one, so that could be easy to manipulate and then easy to foresee. And then from there, we have different model for each specific consumption that are driven by different variables that we selected from the analysis. Next slide, please. So it's still loading. So the basic approach that we decide to use is to go for an hybrid model where we take advantage of top-down approaches and also the bottom-up approaches as well. So the top-down approach that I have started explaining a little bit earlier, we have some input information regarding socioeconomic, technical, technology, and the rest. So this variable drive some are important into knowing the specific how a specific consumption for charcoal and firewood evolve in the continent. So these variables are a great input to our model, and then later there are some different settings that we have to take into account the assumption due to data gaps we have on the continent. So some parameters has been assumed, and also scenarios can be also input into the model. So when this part of top-down go into the model, we have done some correlation analysis, a comparison analysis, a regression analysis, and also filtering, clustering, and so on, so that we end up at the end of the day having a set of variables that highly explaining the specific consumption at the household level for charcoal, firewood, and so on in urban and rural areas. So these feed the bottom up, and the bottom up is very simple. Since we know the specific consumption in biofuel for charcoal, firewood at the household level, and knowing the demographic aspects, knowing the number of households in each country and for every year, we just need to multiply and populate so that to have the entire energy consumption for this country at that particular time. So at the end of the day, the model can give you specific demand for each fuel type, and also per end uses, whether cooking, heating, or lighting. Next slide, please. So Among some of the variables we use initially to feed the model from the WHO, the IEA database as well, the World Bank sustainable indicators and the rest, we end up with selecting these 14 variables, including the access to clean fuels, average household and renewable energy consumption, and so on, as you can see in this slide. And then this variable really are great input to the model. And we found that those are the variables that really drive local or household level specific consumption for charcoal or food or firewood. And then later in the model, we take into account some assumptions, in particular, the percentage of agricultural residues, because we were not able to have enough information and data to be able to model this part. So we are assuming that a percentage of 5%, if I may say, is of agricultural residues is equal more or less to the total consumption of firewood and charcoal, and also net calorific value for firewood and charcoal, giving a specific percentage of moisture into in the fuel. And also we use literature data about end users share into the total energy demand. And of course, some official data from IPCC and also some scenario input. And then these fit at the end of the model that at the end give you the different output that we showed in the slide before. So yes, I already explained that. And then we use some different assumptions, as I was saying, the percentage for agricultural residues and also the moisture level into the different fuel and so on. That help us calculate the right net calorific value. Yeah, of course. So generally, this summarized what I was saying earlier, everything. So we have some selected input variables. We have some development input where you can change some of the assumptions that we have really choose. If this assumption does not switch your country or the special purpose that you want to use the model for. And then when all these are okay, you fit into the model. So the model is dynamic enough to take into account all those different changes you make. And then at the end of the day, you have, first of all, the historical biofuel residential consumption at the biofuel level for firewood and charcoal. So we have from 2000 to 2015 recent data for historical period, and then from 2015 to 2050 some future data. So based on the different development input, like how you want maybe the country in terms of access to clean cooking will be maybe in 2030, 2040, and then this will help to assess SDG achievements, what country have to do in order to achieve SDGs and so on. And at the end of the day, the model also gives us output some emissions quantification, so that it tells you in terms of whether if we improve access to clean cooking, how the emission would be and so on. Yeah, thank you very much. Next slide, please. Yeah, so I will hand over to Maria to present the limitation of the model. As we know, every model is a mathematical representation of the reality. So you also have some limitation, and I will hand over to Maria to present this one. Thank you.
So the limitations we have found the model has, as we said, the data from agricultural waste is assumed as a percentage. This is due to the lack of enough information from the different countries. And this obviously brings some accuracy concerns. As we use a calibration countries such as Senegal and Angola, as my colleague mentioned, we have a dependency on the time series that we use, let's say, about the data we got from them. And this gives us a lot of questions of how representative is the data we use from Angola and Senegal in the past 15 years. And obviously the model will represent this trend. There is a resemblance assumption in which we said the country gets the same trend of the calibration and estimated countries. And as you may know, there are some trading sometimes unofficial trading between the neighboring countries. And this model obviously cannot get enough information about how this, how the interdependency of demand is related in neighboring countries. So for now, I would like to go now for the demo. So I'm gonna stop sharing my screen and I will share again the floor to Thierry.
Or should I share for my side? So that
I can do it as well.
okay.
Okay.
Are you able to share, Mario? Yeah. Ah, Thierry is sharing his screen. Perfect.
Can you see it?
Yes, we can see.
Okay, thank you very much. All right, so it is a Excel-based model. So what you have here at the landing page of the model is this control board. I hope you can see my screen. Okay, great. So you have this control board where you have different sessions. So you have the introduction, you have a part talking about the different input that we use and so on. And then we have another side where you have the different outputs and then some general information, some notes and sources to the different database we access to build this model. So at the beginning, you can have access to the introduction sides where you have the generalities about the project, the methodology, short, the data we use, and that it make reference to the references sheet, and also some of the different features that the model provided. And we talk about it in the presentation, and we at the end of the presentation share with you a more elaborate concept note where you will have a detailed information about the methodology, the data, and the different features and so on. But here is just about a short summary to go about the model. So when I end up with the introduction, I can have a look on a different database. So this is a demographic database where you have access to the World Urbanization Prospect of 2018, where they provide demographic information for all countries around the world and also to 2050. So you can also have a look on that, and depending on your modeling choices, you can modify if you have recent data for your country or the recent projections for your country as well. So also the complete database. So it's this one is very heavy. So you can have access with the complete database, but it's very easy to go about it. You can just sort it here by looking at your, okay, doesn't give me the sound, I think. But you can sort it from depending on your country. So you sort it out, and then when you have your country, a particular country, and a particular year, you look at the different variables and the different years and the different information that are there as well. And then you have the default parameters that we choose in the model. And as I was saying earlier, because of lack of data and gathering reliable data on the continent, we're forced to use some percentage share to capture what all that's concerning agricultural waste and other than firewood and charcoal. So we assume to 5%. And this, the user can also modify this aspect of it to suit his interest, or if they have a recent survey and something that shows that is more than 5% or less and so on. Aside of that, we have some convention unit that we have used, and they also depend on the users from one particular exercise and not another. There is a specific interest to change maybe the level of precision about the unit, the convention unit. So the user can also work into that. And then regarding the net calorific value, you have the different assumptions that we have taken into account and the different sources where we get them from. And then the user can also play with these different constants depending on if he has a reliable data or a recent survey or is not agree with these different numbers, and then he can put his own numbers and see how the model perform about it. And then, as we are saying earlier, we did a pre-analysis aspect where we did some multilinear regression analysis, and we found that some variables are correlated to some specific consumption patterns. So you can have those, the intercept, the slope, and some coefficients one. But this is not so important for the user for now if he doesn't know in detail how the model works and so on. But for now, we protect this part so that the user cannot modify it, so you cannot access this one. So, but for advanced users, we can provide more access to it and how they can play with it later. And then regarding the default emissions factors, we base some of them are coming from the IPCC report and what they use for the IPCC assessments report. So we make sure to be aligned with international consideration and so on. And these are some of the emissions factors and the different sources that we use. And then later on the right-hand side, you can see the different percentage we assume, let's say we consider for some countries based on the different information we gather from our partners, in particular from Africa and also other sources. And you can also see that for some country, we are yet to have some more information. So we decided to put some suggestion there. So we can, the user can also modify if he have access to or have some information about it in order to reflect the country of estimations, the country of estimation. So I put my video off before. Okay, all right. So these are the basic assumptions that the user have access to. And then this one are protected to avoid any uncontrolled changes that could really affect the model. So from there, you can go back to the control panel and so on. So you can have access to the dashboard as well. So we have tried to build a very something fancy so that the user can go to the whole database without having to deal with the numbers. Let me zoom out to my screen level. Okay, all right. Apple, we can see it. Okay. So from here, you can have different information. So the population trends, the GDP, the export of goods and services, and you have a nice chart a nice map here where you have the different countries as part of this project and how they are doing in terms of wood consumption. And this is coming from the IEA database as well. And also electricity access, per capita energy consumption, and also CO2 emission at this level based on the IEA database, how those countries are doing in terms of emission per capita. And then there's an interesting control panel here where you can select your country of interest. So you can select Angola or Algeria, Benin, and so on. And you can also select many countries together, and you can see the changes appear on the different slide. And you can also play with the year that you wanted to see in particular and so on. So you can choose multi-years or one particular year and see what's gives you and so on. So when you finish with this, you can go back to the control panel. So the whole idea about the dashboard is just to give you a kind of overview about the country of interest that you want to measure, how the country is doing in different aspects. So when you end up with this, you just get started to start a modeling approach. So when you click on let me go back. When you click on this on get started, you have this first panel that's come and asks you to choose a particular country. So you choose a particular country. By default, if you don't choose a country, to prompt a message showing that to choose a country. So because this is very important for the model to select the database the particular information for this country to be able to run the model for. So you can choose a country of interest and so on. So let's say I choose Kenya, for instance. And immediately when I choose Kenya, based on the different pre-analysis result we got from the assessment, the model use that to directly compute the unit mass, the consumption for charcoal in urban, rural, and same for firewood and agricultural residues, and take into account the different percentage you use in the default parameters to compute for agricultural residuals. The user can also play if he doesn't suit for his interest a particular unit, so that at the end of the day he can copy and use for different reports as well. So you can have for Kenya, for instance, it gives you directly the residential energy consumption per type. So you see charcoal house has been evolving over the years to 2015 and so on, and also firewood and agricultural residuals and so on, as well as the total. So you can also see at the bottom level the specific per sector. So you have for cooking, for heating and lighting, house has been evolving over the time. So when you end up with this, you can do now a projection analysis. As you can see, this historical part is end up in 2015. And then you wonder how to know about how the sector will behave for the next years and by 2030, or in particular for the SDG goals, and also to more into the future to 2050. So you click on the button projection analysis. And then when you click on the button projection analysis, it gives you a set of variables that you can play with. And then for the different years, what are the targets you're expecting for your country to achieve? So you can play with the different variables that are here. These ones are automatically computed because based on the historical data. And those ones are some information that you can change based on that suits your interest or the purpose of your analysis in order to represent what you want to do. So you specify those different values here. So for this particular exercise, we try to put some value for access to clean fuel, and then when you put it, you try to run the projections. So when you run the projection directly, it tries to do a kind of modeling based on the different aspects you put initially, and give you at the end of the day some representation of how the sector will be, or the different firewood consumption or charcoal and also agricultural waste will be over the year to 2050 and so on. And also the model gives you the possibility to compare, to do a comparative analysis where you can use a country of reference. Let's say we choose first of all Kenya. So I can compare Kenya with, let's say, with Ethiopia. And then I will maybe name my scenario. I will maybe say country comparison. Let's put country comparisons. Country comparisons and so on. And then when I choose it, let me choose again. It give me again this panel to play with some of these variable, and then try to compare the Kenya with Ethiopia using the different scenario and see how it goes. So when I finish that, I will have a button here, compute analysis. So when I compute analysis, in the background, it will try to do some calculation and computation, and then gives you a whole idea about how the consumptions evolved from 2015 to 2050 as well. So you have 3 button options here. You can go back to the comparative analysis here to reset again if you think that some of these doesn't suit your interest, and compute back again. Either go back to the control panel or go directly to the report. So from all the settings you have just done, you can go directly to the report to have a global view of the different manipulation you've done, and then to give you in this sheet a whole a complete information about different manipulation you did in the development part. So you have the country of selection, you have the date, and then from the dashboard, depending on the different aspects you choose on the dashboard here, while modifying the control board, it will give you some of these charts, selected charts here, and then it will animate your report. And then also you have the residential that you model in this sheet, the end uses as well, the projection you done, and also the emission in kilogram per greenhouse gases. And you have the different greenhouse gases, and you can see their proportion. You have a high dominance of CO2 compared to the rest and so on. So when you finish, you can print this if you can print this in PDF for another purpose and so on. So you print it and you use it. So that's all. And then you can get back to the control panel and restart again, and then try to do some modifications and so on. So that's all. So you have the sources for the different data we use. You have them in the link so that you can also check it out and see whether you want to investigate about some value that are different from your country or anything else. And then that's it. So here you have the how the model evolve. We will be updating this file, this part, where we'll be putting the version control, and then how we have changed things as we go. And then this is just to shed light on the fact that when you see this color is an entry cell where you are asked to put value, and this is computed directly from the model as well. So you can't add on that. So that's it. And then you can go back again to the control panel, and then we start again and do what you think is sweet for your interest. That's it. Thank you very much.
Thank you very much, Maria and Thierry, for this excellent work on the creation of the biofuels model. And this was a much needed tool that the IEA was looking for, but also we know that many countries will be interested to use that tool to make their own estimates, and we are hoping that this tool will be used widely. And also the idea of this webinar today was to present to the countries the first version of the model, and we would very much welcome feedback on the model, and we would like to see how we can improve the model to make it better suited for countries' needs, and any improvements that we can make to make a better version. So if you have any questions, please do not hesitate to put it in the question and answer box, and Maria and Thierry will be happy to reply. I've seen that there were already 2 questions that Maria replied already. The first one was, what is the baseline data, the period of the baseline data and the projection of the model? And Maria already said that the baseline data set is available for the 10 countries that we have chosen, and it's available from 2000 to 2015. And from what I understood, Maria, users can also add more historical years as needed. So if they want to see a data before, to use the model before 2000, they can adapt the model, or if they have more recent data available after 2015, so for example 2019, they can also adapt the model accordingly, right?
Yes, that's exactly the idea.
Yeah, and the projection period, it goes to 2050, and so that's clear enough. And the second question from Martin was, is it possible to correlate different data sets, example, household income versus fuel choice? And Maria, you already replied on it. So I don't know if you would like to say something more in detail, Maria or Thierry, on this technical question.
Well, what I answer to the attendant is that basically, as you see in the first part, we've made a pre-analysis study in which we already have defined which are the relevant variables that are correlated with the household consumption. So in this case, there are different set of 11 variables, such as I said, I gave some examples, GDP, but we have also arable land and etc. So in this case, we already have defined which are the variables that are highly correlated with the production. I don't know if somebody has another question related to this, or if this was clearly enough to anyone.
Yeah, I think Martin
Maybe
said.
may I support
Yes.
a bit? Okay, just to add to what Maya said, and then in the peer analysis, we make sure to remove redundant variables. So we know that some variables are correlating together or between themselves. So we make sure to remove all these variables as well. So that's why maybe some of the common variables are not common, because they are already, there are some variables that are selected at the end of the day that also show this characteristic and this strength. So there is also a redundancy that we remove from the selected variables.
Exactly. Thanks a lot. So please, other participants, if you have any question related to the model, please ask. Do not hesitate. And the next step will be that in this afternoon, we will share with you the model in Excel plus a small exercise for you to use and play with the model. And then and also we would like to get your feedback on what do you think of the model, what improvements can we make, and with you, are you interested in using it for your own country or for your own work? We are very interested to learn from you if you have already done something similar, to share experiences. So please do get back to us on your experience and how we could make some improvements. And also next week, next Wednesday, we will have another session which will be a practical session on the model. So we give you 1 week to take a deep look at the model, play with it, try to do the exercise. It's a small exercise where we just ask you to fill out numbers and see how the result looks like, so that you become familiar with the model. And then we will look at this exercise together and collect your feedback. So we really welcome everyone to participate actively and help us improve the model, which we plan to share with you in the future, as well as we make more updates of the model. We will put everything on the IEA website. And we will, more importantly, in addition to the model and the exercise, we will be also sharing with you our concept notes and methodological notes on how and why, how did we come up with this model. So that was what I wanted to say on my side. I don't know if Thierry or Maya, you have anything more to add related to the material?
No, we will share with you, as Sakia mentioned, the presentation as well.
Yeah.
And conceptual notes in which you can see more in detail about the conceptual framework, but also about the methodology using the model. Feel free, please, to collect the different set of questions you may have as you play with the exercise, as you get to know, you get more like familiar with the methodology. We will be very open and very glad to answer to all your questions.
Exactly.
And yes, I will then proceed just to explain to you how the exercise is, just to show you what is the exercise. Either way, we're gonna share later on a folder with this material, but I would just like to show you what are the questions and to get any further question about the exercise if you may have.
Thanks, Maya. Please go ahead. We have 2 people who have raised their hands. So just after Maria explains the exercise, if you would like to take the floor, or please let me know and I will give you the permission to speak. Thank you.
Thierry, could you stop sharing so I can, sorry. Okay, so the first part, I'm gonna skip it because it's basically what we did in the webinar, but I put it like just in the case you have you forgot about any step, you can follow up and do it by yourself later. Here you will have in blue some questions that I would like you just to have in mind, so we can discuss it in the next session. So for instance, how can we understand the results that are that are shown in the report part and in the development part, how the variables are affecting the final results, and do we expect to have a higher or smaller total consumption when we change the input of the scenarios. These are just questions to do when you start going on over the exercise. But then what we propose for the next session is to add some data, extra data from 2016 to 2019 in the different countries. Here you may see this will be done in the tab called Model Fit. The idea is that you introduce this manually, and then that when you run the model, you will see how the results might change. And then also, and not less important, is the different assumptions that we made and how you could play with this as you get more accurate information from your surveys. So in the first exercise we propose is to change the calorific value to a different one in which the humidity is not going to be 15 as the model proposes, but 25. This is important. You get to know that we are using always a wet basis of the moisture, and this is how you can, if you get the information of what is the dry basis, you can convert this to weight basis. And as you may see in the part of the defaults, you will have some links I will show just to you. Here, this is the default parameter tag. Here you have the calorific value that is given for 15% of moisture. And here you have a resource that has been developed to calculate the calorific value if you change the moisture. So we encourage you to play with this and get a new calorific value. And then the idea is, what do you expect is going to change if we change the calorific value? And also if we change the percentage of agricultural residue. So we propose here, as I mentioned before, 25% of calorific value of moisture to change the calorific value, and 20% of the agricultural residues in the share of the biofuels instead of the 5% we assumed before. The idea is to change then this and this value and then get to know what's going to happen. But before, I would just like you to encourage you to have a little reflection on how do you think it's going to change. Do you think the trend is going to get higher, or do you think it's going to get smaller, or you think it's going to be the same? Just to get to know if you really understood what this is. And finally, here we also encourage you to to get new data from the demographic variables. Here you can access, as is mentioned here, in the view demographic database, and you can just paste it here. And the idea is that with this exercise, we can see how the model will change. But also what I really encourage you is to get some kind of hypothesis of how this is changed and how we can actually see if the model gives a coherent information of what your country represents. These are just the questions. We will discuss obviously all the answers, and we will go through all the questions you may have after you do this. And obviously we will share this whole material with step-by-step instruction that we made in the upper part. So that's it for this part. I don't know if anyone has any further question about the questions of the exercise, or something else they would like to share or ask about the workshop.
Thank you very much, Maria. Indeed, I find this last question very interesting, where you ask the users to update some of the assumptions and input data, because the idea is also that the aim of the IEA is also to have a tool that is updated regularly, and where users can continuously add more recent data and more accurate information, so that the model is as accurate and pertinent as possible. So I think this is very useful if users become familiar with updating the input data to the model. And indeed, the assumptions that we made, and it's important that users realize that these are just assumptions made by the IEA, and if you have more updated information, you're more than welcome to change some of the fixed assumptions that we have put in the model to make sure that it works. And for the moment, this model, it's just for 10 countries within our program. And in the future, we would like to be able to expand it to more African countries, and even the ambition would be able to do it for other regions as well. But this is just a starting point for us, where we started with 10 countries of the program, and we will definitely in the future expand it to more countries. So I don't know if you have any more questions. We can take a few more before closing the webinar. I've seen one participant hand raised, Jetnet Tekeda Mulatu. Do you have a question? I don't know if it's just a mistake. So if you have any question, let me know in the chat box or in the Q&A box, and I can give you the permission to talk. Or if any other participant would like to take the floor to tell us about your experience with estimating solid biofuels data in your country. What do you think of the model that you have just seen as well? Like first impressions after this 1 hour session, we would be happy to get your feedback. So you can raise your hand, and then I can allow you to take the floor to talk. Just let me know. I don't see. We have a comment. Hi, the model is great. Keep it up. Thank you. Thank you very much, Marceline Niakoni. Thank you for the encouragement. So as we don't have any more questions, I think it's time for us to close down. Thank you very much for all the attendees who have listened to us during this past hour. As I said, this is just the first session on the model, and next week, same time, we'll meet again to discuss the practical exercise and to collect your feedback on what did you think of the model while playing with it and getting familiar with it. And we will be again with Thierry and Maria next week to discuss. So this afternoon, we'll send you a link with a Google Drive link with all the materials that you have seen today, and you will be able to download it without any issue. And the webinar today has been recorded and will be put on YouTube, so that anytime you can watch the video again. Thank you very much. Have a nice day. Bye.